talking to you about the Iowa Rural Schools Museum in Oroville. And I have on this slide Southwest Sac County because I did show this to Webster City club ladies, and so I needed to pinpoint. And lo and behold, a number of them did know where Oroville was, so that's good. The beginning of country school systems, and it was a system in Iowa, started when Iowa became a state in 1846. And if you recall, the settlement of the area was all along the Mississippi. And the state capital was Iowa City for a period of time. And as they wanted to have people come and develop the state, the Iowa legislature designed the whole state into a grid of 2-mile sections that would have a country school every 4 square miles, or so that no kid would have to walk more than 2 miles to a school, because they wanted those sorts of families to come and populate Iowa. So in 1856, the railroad was still trying to figure out, or had been figuring out, where they wanted to lay the railroad tracks across Iowa. And they had that pretty well underway. So they had purchased a lot of land clear across east-west in Iowa. And so they became the Iowa Rail Land Company and sold land to immigrants and farmers that wanted to come west. And at $4, $5 an acre. Yeah, yeah. So that was a real draw. We have in our in the schoolhouse a document that the Rail Land Company made out in various languages, because they sent these over to Europe, to Germany and the Scandinavian countries, because they knew that those people were pretty well landlocked and had a system where the land only went to the older son in the family. And so the document said, come to Iowa, we've got all this land and we really want you to come and settle. And so we do have that document in the schoolhouse. It's a nice old one. So in 1856, the legislature designed this system of where the schools would go, not where they were, because they weren't yet, but where they should go. And it basically was an intersection, and it could be any place the farmers chose. What it had in its designation was that one of the farmers had to give up an acre of land. And I don't know if it was purchased or if it was just his donation, but an acre of his land was taken to put the school building on. Well, our school building is from Richland Township, and the placement of the schools were all numbered the same in the townships. So ours was in the location of the #1 school. And so it was called Richland #1. It also was called Willow Tree School, because a lot of schools had 2 names, whether it was the Petersmeyer School or Willow Tree School or the Boyer Creek School or something like that too. But then it had its official designation. So the area around Richland Township where this school was settled in 1878 by the Beelers and the Petersmeyers and the Dannenbergs. Came from Lake Creek, Indiana, I think it is. Anyway, it's a suburb of, it might be Illinois. It's a suburb of Chicago, is how far they had gotten. And then they came to, sent scouts in order to find the land, and their young son said, come to Iowa, we've got the location. And so they settled in 1878. And the school actually did start right around that time, but it was in the Petersmeyer home, which was the old house of the Kessler farm. And that's where the Petersmeyers lived first. And Mr. Petersmeyer, the farmer, was the first teacher. Maybe had something to do with the fact he had 14 kids. So he had most of the population of the school district at that time. So That was in 1879, yeah. Okay. In 1883, they got jurisdiction in order to build the school. They had to wait for a county superintendent to be installed before they could actually build their building and get going. And 1883 is when this building was built. And the carpenter that led the group of farmers that built it had been a carpenter in Germany. And the Victorian features that we have then are duplicated. And nobody remembers it green and white, but we scraped down and found the green and white color. We also scraped down and found the pale orangey color that's on the walls. So we've got the original 1883 colors, or the first colors we could find anyway, on our building. Other features from Victorian buildings would be the gingerbread, the corbels, fish scales, and fleur-de-lis treatment. That's kind of a symbol from France, and tall, narrow windows. And our building has all of those. So you guys are familiar with that. And our hollyhocks are growing great. Thanks, Jim, for his addition to our foundation. He and Irene Thayer planted our foundation in original plantings as Master Farmers program, right? Part of the work, yeah. Sandy traveled around Iowa and she documented what a Victorian building looked like and found a number of school buildings that have these. The problem is that a lot of them are painted out in the same color, and so you don't notice the fish scales necessarily. But they're there on these school buildings. And then of course on ours, and those are 1883 wood, right there. That hasn't been changed on that building at all. This building is a school building that Wes Berg used to live in. His family took the schoolhouse and made it their home. And it's almost identical to ours, except we don't think it ever had a bell tower on our building. The corbels are these structures underneath the eaves, and they can be as plain Jane as these, or as fancy as something like this. So that's what corbels are. We had a whole new vocabulary that we learned when we were doing this. And Italianate buildings are the narrow buildings, or the windows that of these schools are showing. Those are all Victorian features. And then the tin roof, I don't know if you can see on this picture, but it's a decoration to kind of seal up the eave, or the roof shingles probably, and also might be decorative, and ours was. Our fleur-de-lis pattern is right there. Can't see it in the photograph so well, but come down to the school, you'll see it. We've got it in a window box, or in a display. This is the earliest picture we have of our school building in 1929. And as you notice, the corbels are gone. I think the gingerbread's gone. I'm not sure whether this is the gingerbread they had or not up there. But it's all one color. And that probably was practicality's sake, you know, and inexpensive to go with all one color. And so that's 1929. And it did have 5 or 6 steps to go up into the building. This building remained on the acre after it closed and bused the kids to school here in Otabil in 1951, fall of 1951. They came to Otabil. And Wanda Carrier was the bus driver, if you remember her. And this building stayed out on the acre and was still a voting place, was still a community building where they would have meetings, extension meetings and that. Kurt and his 4-H club would meet there. Probably your brothers too. Yeah. And so it was used for another 8 years. In 1959, they decided to sell the building and the contents and give the 1 acre back to the Bealers. So they sold everything, and Harold Boney bought the building and got it on a truck and trucked it down to his place, which was a half a mile away. So for a lot of true die-hard type historical restoration people, you're not supposed to move these historical buildings. It already had been moved. So our moving it to town was not a big deal. So Harold and Glenn Betterman worked for him as a hired man, and they took the stage out of the building and made it a flat floor and built wooden farrowing crates in that building, and then it was a farrowing house. And when Harold and Ruth decided to retire, we bought the building from them on their farm sale and left it where it was because we were moving to the farm. And my boys used it as a lambing shed. So it had the blackboards on the wall and the corner cabinet still, and they could record what shots they gave, who gave birth to how many lambs and things like that. So it was still pretty handy to use like that. Later on, Jeff and his grandpa cleaned it all out, and he had plans to maybe use it for a chicken house, but there were too many gaps in the floor, so we used it for storage after that. Ruth Boney at one point painted it red because she was painting all the other outbuildings on the farm. And so it never was a red schoolhouse, but it was a red farm building for a while. And that's the way it looked when we were talking about what are we going to do with this. The way it started, Dorothy Kessler and Sandy Kessler Host came and said to us, we'd like to see the old building for old time's sake and maybe get some coat hooks or something, see what's there. And so there were coat hooks. They took those, and they had a globe from a lamp that they took. But as they looked around, this is what they were seeing. I said, I don't know. Sandy had a collection of desks. She had a collection of lunch boxes. Her brother-in-law had a collection of toys. And we just got to talking, and all of a sudden this idea came up to the top and to surface, and we said, I wonder if that would work. So what we did was we got a meeting together in 2010. We put in the Chronicle, anybody that went to country school, come and enjoy a few nibbles and listen to our talk and see what you think. And we had 40 people come. And we showed them the pictures that Sandy had taken, and presented the idea, and we said, are we all off base? Mayor Rex was also there, and everybody thought it was a great idea, and he said we needed to talk to the council and we needed to talk to the Betterment Committee. So Sandy and I did that, and we had those 40 people all signed a petition that said that they would back us if we undertook that. And so we got a steering committee all lined up. It was a little heavy on the teacher side. We had former teachers, we had present teachers on that committee, but it was a really good committee. And we planned the move, and we planned how we were going to rebuild this building, because it did need quite a little work. So in 2011, we moved it in October. Actually postponed it a couple of weeks. The first day was not good for the weather. We called the television stations. We had a lot of local media, and Farm News was there from Fort Dodge. This is our move day. It was snowing lightly, but this is as it's trying to creep through the bridge downtown here. And if you're interested in the video, the move video is on our website. So it's kind of fun to watch that. Went about 7 miles is how much it traveled, with the help of Mid-America and RAC and a lot of spotters. The Hoflings, Dale Hofling had gone to this school, and his son moved buildings, and they donated the move for us. There, when Sandy was doing research about our school and the possibility of making it into a museum, she got some interesting numbers. And one of those that she likes to use a lot is that there were 12,623 schools at one time across Iowa that were country schools or used in the rural school system. First generation means that it probably didn't have a basement or a cellar at all, didn't have running water, didn't have electricity. As second generation, the buildings either needed to be rebuilt or newer buildings were built. Then they included those kinds of things in their buildings. But at the time that she did this, there weren't very many that were being kept as museums. And in most cases, they were being kept as a classroom type of museum, set up as a classroom. Those buildings were built really well, and so a lot of them turned into something else. I think in Otoville, we've got 7 or 8 that are homes that started as country schools. So that was not uncommon that those buildings were moved and also used for something else. And Sandy has a book that she wrote that documents where these different schools are that are being taken care of. And not very many of them are out in the country. And our fear was if we left it developed out in the country, it was going to get vandalized, wasn't going to be very visible to people to visit and that sort of thing, or accessible. So it made sense to move it to town. So this is the way it looked a few days before we opened in June during Creek Days of 2013. If you notice, we don't have the plastic surroundings around our precious items like that dress from Jim Meyer's grandmother and things like that. But Lundell's were in there the day before Creek Days, putting them in, installing them, and they gave those to us. We asked Vance if in his catalogs, if he had a source for these kinds of containment boxes that we could put around things. And he looked and he said, nobody's making them, but I can. So bless him and bless his company, because that was a priceless gift to us. Dr. Fowler is the creator of our front statue that we call Time for School. And he was so proud that he was helping us with this. He has one like this in his front yard that he made that Sandra saw. And she brought a picture of it back to our committee and said, if I can convince him to make another one, can we go ahead with this? And of course all these teachers said, yeah. And so he donated his mold that he had created. We paid for the bronze that went in it, and then he actually brought it over, transported it to Otoville, and saw that it got installed correctly.
Where is he from?
He's from Wisconsin. Kennesaw, Wisconsin, maybe something like that. And so we're real proud of that. It's time for school. And we often say the little boy's learning more about biology in front than looking at the frog in the pool than he will from his books. Then the Gronemeyers saw this statue and called us and asked, would you accept it if we bought it and shipped it and got it installed? That was not hard to answer. And so we have this one. It didn't have a name, so we called it Recess. And if you look closely, that's a 1920s type tire, a real narrow tire on that one. We also benefited from the school taking out these benches. They were in an outdoor classroom area up at the elementary school. And they were going to enlarge the building in that area. And these were set out for scrap or whatever. And thanks to Dale Goberson, we found out about them and got them moved. And Jack Bensley did his wonders on them. And we got those installed. And this is the way they looked for a year or so. And then we put the roof over the top. So that became our outdoor classroom, which is real pleasant to sit in the hot days. We used it a lot in 2020. That was where we had meetings. We have a second grade teacher that likes to bring her second grade class down here every year in the spring. These kids are all sophomores, I believe, now. So anyway, we have those visits, and the Iowa history teacher likes to bring his Iowa history class down. It's real beneficial that we're close to the school and can treat them. And then in 2021, we hosted the Iowa Country School Conference. It was scheduled for 2020 and then postponed, or at least they were on it to do it online, and we said, no, we've got too much to show you. We want you to come. So we did it in 2021. This was the day that everybody toured Odebolt's Heritage Square. The day before, we had about 80 people at the community center for the speakers and presentations. Not all of them came the second day. But we looked at Odebolt for about an hour or so, and then we went over to Moorhead Park and looked at that schoolhouse complex. And then we also were out at Prairie Peddler and looked at their schoolhouse and had our lunch out there. So it was a real beautiful day. This is one of my favorite pictures. I always call them twins. They're actually they're a little more than a year apart. But we use this photograph quite often. But we advertise where we can. Our Iowa, we've advertised in. We've done with Travel Iowa. And we've had advertisement in the Omaha papers and things like that too. So we try to get our name and place out there. We were designated from the American Association of Country Schools Association. Sandy goes there quite often as a speaker, and so we got that landmark designation on her application. So we owe an awful lot to Sandy Kessler-Host. So we've got summer hours, and basically going to go through September yet this year, and we'll see from our attendance how that goes. But we're really quite willing to and able, if we can, to host people whenever they call and whenever they're in town. Sometimes they like to stop at Wareham's and put out the is somebody around, or at the City Hall. So, and as often as we can, why we try to do that. We've got the brochure here that is actually kind of out of date, but still has quite a lot of the information. And then we did do a day tour for people that we wanted to encourage them to not only come to the schoolhouse, which if you give it a good amount of time, the appropriate amount of time, you could spend a couple of hours there. But if people think that there's nothing else to do in Odebolt, I think we proved them wrong, because this is like 2 days worth of looking and enjoying. I brought some things from the schoolhouse today. We've got atlas books. The oldest one, the big one, is from 1908. You can't imagine how many people come in and want to know where their farm was and who owned it beforehand and who the neighbors were and find some of the old names that they remember. The other one that I have is in 1931, but we have about 7 others as well through the years. So it's really interesting. That 1908 one has the town of Herring and Grant City in it. So if you ever wanted to know where those communities were. There's also some laminated 8th grade tests. See if you could take that 8th grade test and pass. I couldn't. And several things that were made as toys. The one is a little girl that's made out of buttons a lot and spools. And then the little bunny is made out of dried corn husks. So it's kind of fun to see in our toy collection the handmade toys, what people used. We have darts that are made out of corn cobs and things like that. Then we've got a Dick and Jane book and things like that. Some of the things or misconceptions that we've got, people have sometimes, is that the building is not hot, it's not cold, it is just right. We have air conditioning, and we always have had, as long as it's working. It's working wonderfully now. And that's to preserve the books, because we've got 2,000 books in that building, and we don't want them to be musty. We aren't just a schoolhouse. We are set up as a school classroom with a variety of desks. But we've also got historical documents. We've got the Declaration of Independence. We've got all these plaque books. We've got containers that show the different soils in the area, our area versus Council Bluffs and around the area. We've got display of fabrics and display of stitching. We've got displays of music and this cabinet full of toys and cabinet full of hand tools that you would have used around the farm if you went to this particular country school. I've heard from people, well, I went through during the open house in 2013. You know, I've seen it. You haven't seen it. People kind of walked through and did, you know, you read as you walked through, but that was about it. A person really needs to come and spend some time. And plus, we've changed it a lot in the last 10 years. This is our 10th anniversary this year. We have a lot of history of Iowa. We've got teacher references. We've got a set of teacher books that the teachers were using to learn how to teach from. We've got a reading library for their free time. We have 12 stations, audio stations in it, that each have 2 minutes, so there's 24 minutes of presentation. And what's on those stations are stories from school students that went to this school that told Sandy the stories, and then she recorded them and had people say them in their place. But one story is from Fern Kessler Carstensen, and I'll tell you that story. She was talking about they'd been out to recess, and as soon as they got in and got all settled down, a little girl raised her hand and wanted to go to the bathroom, which was the outhouse outside. And the teacher said, no, you were just at recess, and that's what you're supposed to do during recess. You cannot do that. So it wasn't very long, and she wet her pants. So the teacher had her take off her panties and hung them in the window for them to dry in the breeze and flutter in the window for all to see. And she was so thoroughly embarrassed that she didn't ever do that again. And that's just a cute story from one of these audio stations. So come and listen, come just to listen. We also have a 22-minute video that we put together, and Sandy wrote it, and it was professionally put together with Blue Space down in Denison, that tells the history of the country school system. We got, like I said, we've got the moving how we moved to town. That moving video is on our website, and that's here in front of you. We've had a lot of fun having families come. We had all the Bealers one year, or one Thanksgiving, I think it was, that they all got together. We just had the Newman family Saturday morning, or Saturday afternoon. About 25, 30 people, all different ages in there. And we've had the lawyer family made it a country school day. They brought sack lunches and everything. So it's a real fun family, fun day type of thing. So we can do whatever people want to have. Our future that we have our quilt block we took down because it was on the corn crib that is no longer. We want to put that back out in the corner on the opposite side where our little gazebo building is. Sandy and the Masters girls have started inventory of all these 2,000 books. They're part of the way through. Before we had an inventory, but it was on Excel, and we've gotten lots more books since then. So it needs to be updated, and eventually it's going to go on our website so people know what our books are that we have, so they can check them out if they wish or whatever, or come to look at them. All our money comes from selling our books or donations or grants that we've earned, that we've applied for and earned. The city does pay for our electricity, our mowing, our internet, and our insurance. And we have a really great board. All the volunteers that help us be docents, and then also our board that helps us make decisions on them. We're going to have to put a new screen door on. This green one has kind of fallen apart. It's a good old wooden door that's fallen apart. So we're going to rectify that here at the end of September. So, any questions?
Carol, can you talk about the wide variety of visitors that you have, even from other countries?
Yeah. Yeah, we had a disappointed young man the other day. I said that, well, we've had people from South Korea even, and Japan. Buena Vista likes to bring their international students down. And so we've had them for a couple of, 3 years, I guess, she's brought the international students, and a lot of times they're from Asia. And this young man said, well, then I'm not the farthest away. So anyway, yeah, we have, and then there was a little gal that was going to be an exchange student, I think overnight at Grove from Australia, that was just walking around Odebolt and dropped in and that sort of thing. So yeah, and you can't advertise all those places, so we just hope that they find us on the website, and that's what we're really depending on, is that we show up someplace at the top of the list, museums in the area. So.
And what books do you have for sale?
We have the Adams book we are out of now. We're taking a list. We have one name on the list, so that doesn't benefit. We have to publish, we have to have at least 100 to publish. So we don't know if we'll redo that or not, but we have the book that talks about all of the country schools that Sandy, when she was going around researching what we should do, took a lot of photographs. And so photographs of all the school buildings that were being taken care of in that time frame. And I think it was 2008 and 9 that she did that. And that book is telling you where they are, and has photos of them. And talks a little bit about the Victorian features that are on the buildings. Some of those that I showed you were from that book. And then the other book is talking basically about the items we've got in our school building, in the museum, and what they were used for, and that sort of thing, and the history of those items. So we have those 2 books for sale. Yeah. And they're $20. And that's on our website too.
the other things that Sandy has created? I know, isn't there some kind of a program she's done for
She,
Iowa history?
yeah,
schools?
she, as she's doing this, she says, you know, they don't teach Iowa history like they did when we were kids. and they don't. And so she and her sister put together an eight installment video of the development of Iowa in the Midwest area from the glaciers through the settlement of Iowa. And that's on our website too. You can go to the website and see it. And she made it available on AEA for the teachers to access, and there's a teacher's guide, and there's a lot of questions and just how to teach it too, that we gave the teachers. And we did a lot of mailings for the libraries, all got copies of these books, and then all the history teachers in Iowa got this video and the teaching materials for it. Anyone else?
You were mentioning that every school had a number
Uh-huh.
and then a name.
Yeah. Well, maybe a name.
And then because I went to country school for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel old, but I always
No.
know, because I probably went to town school, first grade, so I would have been right about, it would have been about 61.
Yeah.
I think that ours was the Hogan Country School.
Uh-huh.
I lived a mile and a half from there.
Okay.
But I didn't ever have to walk, my brother did. The year I started, they started hauling us in the station wagon.
Oh, so the furthest family, someone told me that the other day, that they'd watch for the furthest family out, be walking up the road, and then they'd join them, and then they'd all pick up the rest of the kids on their way. Yeah, yeah. And the Hogan probably came from a family name
Could easily.
that was around there,
My
yeah.
teacher's still alive, I need to go find her.
Most of these schools were closed by the late 50s, early 60s, yeah. And the only school buildings that really are still in use are used by the Amish or communities because of their desire to do
My
that.
school building was moved into, no, not the one I went to, but other school buildings were moved to town to house all the country kids that came in,
Ah.
flexing population.
Yeah. And it's different, like in Nebraska, they're called ranch schools, and a ranch will host a school, and then there's a lot more distance for them to cover to get to those schools, and then, so I don't know if they have to board them or what, but, yeah. Each state's probably a little bit different, but this is Iowa's story. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.